Hello everyone and welcome back to biology. Today we're continuing with our lesson on worms. Now today I'm actually going to be telling you about 3 types of worms that we're going to be focusing on during this lesson. Okay? So those 3 worms are a flatworm. Let me write them down. So a flatworm, a roundworm, and lastly a segmented worm. Okay, those are the 3 worms we're going to be looking at. Up next, I'm going to insert 3 different clips. Make sure you see all of them and copy them down in your notes. Label each worm what it is. It's important because we're going to be learning different things about them and their habitats. So, get your pencils and papers and get ready to do some drawings. Now that you've seen what each worm looks like, I want to tell you a little bit about each. Okay? So, again, please make sure to take note. We're going to start off with flatworms. Flatworms are actually the simplest form of worms. Most flatworms are actually parasites. A parasite is something that lives inside of another organism. It either lives inside or on top of another organism. Meaning, when there is actually a parasite inside another organism, the organism, let's call it a host. So, let's say a parasite goes into an organism. We're going to refer to it as a restaurant. And usually when you go into a restaurant, you have your host and they're like, "Good evening, how are you today? Come on in, take a seat, here's your table," so on and so forth, right? Now, let's say a parasite comes in, greeted by the hostess. The parasite finds its place in with the host. Okay? What a parasite does is that it starts to cause harm to its host. For example, it's not healthy for it. It will cause it to be sick all the time. It just, again, isn't healthy for it. So that's why parasites are not good. Flatworms, that's what they usually are. But not all flatworms are actually parasites. There are some free-living flatworms that don't need a host, so that means they're not a parasite. They're free-living. They usually are in ocean water or fresh water. That's where you would usually find them. And those actually don't cause any harm. Moving on, roundworms. Roundworms are actually the most common type of worm there is out there. They are thin, tube-like, smooth. They live in soil. They are free-living. That means they don't need a host or to live on another organism. But however, there are actually some roundworms that are also parasites. But these parasites that are roundworms are actually cause harm to humans. So roundworms, the parasite ones, when they find their way into a host, which would be a human body in this case, it will cause harm to the human. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know when I was growing up, my mom and my grandma would always tell me about lombrices, which is worms. Yeah, that's what they're talking about. Parasites. They are a real thing, and yes, they do cause a lot of harm. So, maybe it won't cause a difference if you finish all your soup, like they would tell me, but it is something to be mindful of. These things do exist. And to finish off today, we have our segmented worm. Now, a segmented worm is actually the most complex type of worm there is out there. Why? A segmented worm is actually has a lot of systems within itself. It is a tube within a tube. You can see it's made out of a lot of different segments. That's why it's called a segmented worm. Easy to remember. Anyways, each segment actually has hair-like strands, which is what it moves with. Most segmented worms actually live in the soil. Some live in the ocean, and some actually live in fresh water as well. Like I mentioned before, a segmented worm is actually made up of numerous systems, like a respiratory system, a nervous system, a muscular, I think the word is muscular system, meaning that it has different sets of muscles within itself. So that is why it is very complex. Actually, the most well-known worm, segmented worm there is out there is an earthworm. If you haven't seen one in real life, they actually live in the soil. They're pretty easy to find. You can actually Google a picture of it if you want to see it, but that is the most well-known worm there is out there, actually, a segmented worm. So that will be all for today on our worm talk. Next time we're going to be going in a little deeper, more on feeding and reproduction of worms. But for today, that would be all. For your assignment today, I want you to send me bullet points of what I told you of each type of worm. So, flatworm, roundworm, and segmented worm, as well as each diagram for each. That will be your assignment for today. I hope to be hearing back from everyone very, very soon. And again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate and ask. I'm here to help. I hope you all have a very wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to be hearing back from everyone very, very soon. Goodbye.